Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. My name is Imelda Ramirez, and I'm the Deputy Trial Court Administrator at the Ada County Courthouse. Presenting with me is Santiago Barrios. He's our Language Access Coordinator. And also we have Jamie Martin. She's joining us online. She is our Civil Front Counter Supervisor, and she'll be available to answer any questions that we have for her. So first, I wanted to give you a roadmap of some of the things that we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk about language access services and the legal requirements that we have in our office to provide interpreters for anyone who does not speak English. We'll also talk about the certification process, the requirements that interpreters must meet in order to even interpret in the court, whether it be a court hearing or for any sort of interaction with the public in the courthouse. Last, we'll cover some of the services we provide for ADA accommodations. That's services that are required under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Then we'll switch and I'll talk about the court process. We'll cover some of the common misconceptions that we know people have about the court system. We'll go over some of the most frequently asked questions and then talk about the services that are available at the courthouse. So I'll turn it over to Santiago Barrios, and he will talk to you about language access services.
Well, hello everyone. Like Imelda, my boss, was saying, my name is Santiago Barrios, and I work as the Language Access Coordinator. So I'm going to ask you for the clicker. Thank you so much. So I'm originally from Argentina. When I moved here, my whole family pretty much lives here. And I have the situation that both my parents don't speak a lot of English. My dad, he speaks good Italian, and he speaks good Spanish, but very little English. So it happened to him a lot that he would go to many different places. And people trying to help, they were absolutely trying their best, but they would get a situation that was literally like, how can I help you? I know, we laugh, but it was literally like that, I promise. So I'm extremely happy and proud of what we do to be a part of the Language Access Office. And I'm going to explain to you why. I know I have an accent. Sometimes it gets thicker. So if by any chance you don't understand, you feel free to, raise your hand, and I'll be more than happy to repeat whatever, you didn't understand. Let me tell you a little bit about our team. So the Language Access Office, we have 2 full-time staff interpreters. We have Vanessa. We have another lady, her name is Carla. And just between the 2 of them, they assist people every single day in Spanish, in English, in French, and Russian. And you know what's interesting about this? When I first moved here to Idaho back in 2010, so I speak French, Spanish, English, and Italian. I try to speak English at least. But when I first moved here, I honestly 100% thought, well, you've heard, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I really thought that, well, I'm never going to use these languages. And guess what? I was 100% wrong. So I'm sharing here one slide just so you have a little bit of an idea. And this is from the very last census that we have. It's back from 2013. It's the very last one available. And if you look, it shows 95 different languages spoken in the state of Idaho. And keep in mind that we said back from 2013. I am sure you're going to agree with me that since then, things have tremendously increased. So it's probably even more languages that are included there. If I tell you Swahili, if I say Spanish, if I say Arabic, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, right? But what if I tell you something like dairy? If I say Czechese, do you know? I gotta be honest with you. I had no idea what those languages. I didn't even know it was a language, to be honest with you, until I started working at this office. I started working at the Ada County Courthouse back in 2013. I was a clerk there for like 6 years, 5-6 years. And even though I knew that there were people that spoke other languages, it wasn't until I really got this position that now I see how every single day we get this request for people to have the same rights to accesses that a person that speaks English has. Just for last year, 2021 fiscal year, we got 47 different languages that were requested that we were able to fulfill. But why do we do this? Is it just because we're trying to be nice? Is it just because we like variety? Well, no, absolutely not. The reason we do this is because we're trying to protect your constitutional rights. These, again, are your constitutional rights. So I'm not going to be talking about this a long time, so don't be scared. But we're going to talk a little bit about the legal requirements that are governing the access to the courts. Okay? It's a good thing to know what they are, to know your rights, and where you can find them in case you ever need to show that to somebody. So we'll talk a little bit about the Idaho Code, Section 9205. We're going to talk a little bit about the Idaho Court Administrative Rule. And then Imelda will talk a little bit more about the ADA accommodations. In case you haven't heard, ADA accommodations is something that we do see a lot in Ada County. So we say Idaho Code Section 9205. Well, what are we talking about? Well, in a nutshell, this has to do with interpreters being appointed, whether it's for a civil case or for a criminal case. Somebody goes to the courthouse and they're like, well, you know, I'm afraid I don't speak English, and my kid wasn't available. He was born here. He speaks perfect English. Well, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth, about using a family member, using a friend. Oh, my neighbor, you know, my neighbor is such a good guy. He doesn't speak a word of my language, but he's patient enough, he can help me out. We'll talk about that. So you go to the courthouse because unfortunately you got a citation, you got a ticket. You want to go obtain a marriage license, a very important day in your life, right? That you are able to do it by yourself, okay? Or you want to go file for an adoption or a name change. Well, when you walk out of this building today, my goal is to please, you need to remember, come to the courthouse. Do not be afraid. You do not need to bring a person to be your interpreter. Absolutely not. That is what we're there for, okay? And this has to do with the Idaho Code Section 9205. We also see that there's people that come and they speak perfect English. As a matter of fact, they were born here, but they do have some physical limitations. It did happen not so long ago of a gentleman that he had a heart attack, and even though he was perfect, he just couldn't write things down. Well, we'll be happy to serve you. The Ada County Language Access Office, that's what we're there for. So if you know a neighbor, if somebody comes to your office, or somebody just needing help, feel free by all means. You either call the Trial Court Administration Office, or just come directly. Okay, my name is Santiago Barrios. We'll be absolutely happy to assist you with that. Another one that we have is the Idaho Court Administrative Rule 52 and 50. So this one right here, what it shows is that the interpreters that we'll be using, they have to be tested and they have to be trained. If you remember, if you recall, I told you earlier that I speak French, that I speak Italian, and Spanish. Well, I'm a little bit ashamed of sharing this, but I will. I took this test to become an interpreter, a court-certified interpreter, and I failed. It is very, very, very hard, okay? It's something that you take once a year, but I'm not giving up, though. I'm going to keep trying until I pass that. And I speak perfect Spanish, perfect French, and I'm still working on my English. Apparently, I don't speak English that well. But so whenever you come and we tell you, hey, thank you so much for bringing your brother, or thank you for bringing your friend that speaks the language, but you know what? We're going to use our interpreter. Please do not be upset. Do not be offended. We really appreciate your good intentions. But I mean it 100%. When I say that we'll get you the very best interpreter, we really do. We strive for nothing but the best. This is not something that will happen in the courtroom. The minute the judge stops talking, you're done. You don't have an interpreter. No, absolutely not. Always, whatever question you have, reach out to us, okay? It did happen also a situation that I saw a little bit on the refugee community that they knew this interpreter and they just didn't feel comfortable with this person. They said, you know what, this person just no, please. They know my family. Personally, I feel like, we're a very tiny community here in Idaho, and please, by all means, let us know, and we'll try our very best to accommodate to whatever your needs are. And then last but not least, the number 50 that you can see right there is to provide equal access and full participation. What do we mean by this? Well, we do have some programs. Just to give you an example, something that I'm very, very, very proud of, and I don't know if I say it very many times, but is our drug court. If you know a little bit about this, it's a program that we've seen it. It works. It has the power to change people's lives. I've seen people that they've been literally homeless, having horrible issues with addictions, and now they're actually working for us. They're mentors. It's amazing. Well, it happens at times that somebody will require an interpreter. They don't speak English. Well, they no longer qualify to be in the program. Totally wrong. We will get you an interpreter. Whether that means that we have to get you a court reporter, that they have to be typing everything live, they call it closed captioned, or even if it is a sign language interpreter, but we will try our very best to accommodate. Let me tell you a little bit about our court interpreters. So why is it that we really want to use a court interpreter and not your friend or not your daughter? I mean, my daughter speaks perfect Kinyarwanda. Her Kinyarwanda is fantastic. She doesn't even have an accent. And English, please, she was born here. She took all her education has been in English. Well, there's a reason, and right now I'm going to prove it to you. A court interpreter should be able to understand legal terminology. I don't know if you're going to agree with me, but those ones that are bilingual or that speak, this could be another language on its own. Did it ever happen to you that you went to a doctor's appointment and when the doctor is talking to you, you say, excuse me, can you say it again, but in English? Right? Because it's different terminology. Well, a court interpreter is 100% qualified, and they'll understand what this means. Another situation is ethics. When you are hearing a case and you're like, oh, I don't like the direction this is going, well, who is judging here? The interpreter? Is it the judge? Or another situation that we see is that they'll ask the interpreter, well, what should I do? Should I plead guilty? Should I not plead guilty? So you do 100% want to use a court-certified interpreter. And there's different modes of interpreting. And depending on how the case is going, the judge might stop everything and say, no, let's do this type of interpreting. At times the judge will say something and stop and give the interpreter time to say that in a different language. And at times, something that we see a lot is that the same way I'm talking to you, almost at the exact same time, the interpreter is hearing that in English, but saying it almost at the same time in a different language. Okay? Mastery of the foreign language. And this is the issue. This is what we see a lot, that they speak perfect English, but then they are not 100% good in the foreign language. When you have to know how the court proceedings work, trust me, there is a lot involved. We have different types of interpreters. The one that we use for court almost 100% of the times, almost, we really try, but at times there's languages that there's not an actual certification for that. But it's the number one that you see right there. It's either a master level or a certified interpreter. So 95% of the times, that is what we use. Number two is what I almost became. It's a conditionally approved interpreter, okay? These are the ones that were almost there, but they didn't do it, okay? But they were almost there. And number three, we have a registered interpreter. Well, right now, I kind of want to share something with you, and this is a real story. I'm kind of glad my wife is not here, because I don't know. But again, what I want you to please do is think this question. Why should I never bring a family member or a friend? Why do I just need to go along with the courts? This is what they're trying to do to help me. Well, this happened some years ago. My wife, her name is Irene. What happened to her, her mom was Mexican. So she grew up speaking Spanish. And what happened is that she went to a doctor's appointment just with her mom, and the interpreter didn't show up. So here we have this tiny, she was very, very short. So we have this tiny little cute kid with her mom at a doctor's appointment. And the doctor did not have good news, okay? It was so bad to the point that he thought he couldn't wait. So he decided, unfortunately, to use this 9-year-old kid to tell her mom. And put yourself in the shoes of this little kid, in the position. She had to tell her mom that she had cancer, that they caught it way too late, and that unfortunately, it was terminal. Now, we said think of the little kid, right? Think of you as a parent. Could you imagine you hearing from your own kid? Oh, sorry about that. Could you imagine hearing from your own kid, a 9-year-old kid, you look at them in the eyes with tears and them saying, Mom, you're gonna die. Please, the only reason I'm sharing this is because I'm trying to prove a point. Use your court interpreter. If we look at the slide real quick, I can also explain why. When you use a friend or even a kiddo that comes with you, they might not understand or know how to 100% correct interpret some concepts or some terms or the process. It does happen a lot that people come and say, well, I just want to talk to the judge. You know, there was a protection order. This was not fair. You know, he didn't hit me. I hit myself. You know, it was an accident. He never hit me. He should have never been arrested. I want to talk to the judge right now. You know, and they go to the clerk's office, and poor clerks, you know, now they have to deal with this situation. Well, it can be done, of course, but there is a process, okay? Well, a court interpreter can help you with that. A court interpreter is not an attorney, okay? By all means, no. But they know what the process is, or they can find out, okay? Another thing is, sometimes when it's a family member, they know things that, you know, they feel like, well, you know what? It's my mom. I know her. She's always overreacting. Absolutely. You know, my dad did this, but it was her fault because she kept on pushing all his buttons. So, you know what? I'm not going to say everything. I'm going to try to help my dad here. Here we go again. Please use your certified court interpreter. At times, it might happen that there is a conflict of interest. Bring it up, you know, like we were saying earlier. No, I don't like that interpreter for this H, B, and C, whatever reason you have. Or last but not least, they might be too emotionally involved. When we talk about meaningful access, well, we're not just talking about a court hearing, okay? Let's suppose that you have a probation meeting. The judge will say, you have to take these classes. So go meet with your PO, with your probation officer. Well, what am I going to do? You know, I don't speak Czechese. Well, usually what happens is either the party will contact my office directly, or the other thing is that the probation officer will just contact us and set up an appointment. This is with meetings that it could be with a public defender, that they request this for, they call it a client attorney or attorney-client meeting, I believe. PD is smiling, so I'm hoping that's good. Or with the prosecutor. Absolutely, by all means, you feel free. And if you have questions, the best thing is just give us a call or come to the courthouse. We are on the 4th floor. And then my very last slide that I have is just to let you know the things that we have available. If you come to the courthouse, I mentioned we only have 2 full-time staff interpreters. We do have bilingual employees. I do, and I speak, other languages, but we have a lot of other employees that are not good to be used as an interpreter, but that they can assist you, work as a clerk, or work as whatever their title is, just speaking a different language. We can help with that for sure. But let's suppose you come to the courthouse and it's a language like Kinyarwanda. And you're like, well, how am I going to help this person? They don't speak English. Well, one of the things that we use a lot is called the language line. So this is something that they can just call this service and they will say, the language I need is Kinyarwanda, okay? So you just wait a couple of minutes and boom, you're connected, you have a person right there. Another thing that the clerk's office uses a lot is when you go to, for example, the civil side, they have this computer where you can actually even see the interpreter. I personally like that better. You can see the person, I connect a little bit, and at times there's things that unless you see the person, you cannot 100% translate or interpret. We already talked about bilingual employees. At times it will happen that we don't have an interpreter here in the state of Idaho. It happens a lot, actually. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Just let us know if you can give us at least 1 week, that's fantastic. But if not, it's totally good. We'll do our best to get you. It could be through WebEx, Zoom that we're using a lot now, but we will get you an interpreter. Or the other thing is we can get you a court reporter. Again, it happens a lot that sometimes people are hard of hearing. They speak perfect English, but they will need that extra help. Or even that people just get very nervous. Does it happen to you when you're taking a test that you get very anxious? Me, for example, when I sat for that test to become an interpreter, I didn't even know what my name was. I was actually surprised that even though I failed, I needed 80% and I got 78.5. So even though I know it's loser's talk, but I was like, well, it wasn't so bad. But my point is, when people go to court, sometimes they get extremely nervous, very anxious, and they need a support person. Well, give us a call. We'll absolutely try to do our very best. Our goal is that when you walk out of the doors, when you are leaving the courthouse, that you will feel like you were heard and that you had all the same accesses that somebody that speaks English, that you were exactly on the same boat, okay? And now we turn it to Imelda.
So I want to shift directions a little bit and talk about some of the court process and the common misconceptions that we have. And we know where a lot of them come from. The courthouse is difficult to navigate. It's a building with 5 different stories, but also we have county administration offices within the same courthouse. Not only that, but we have the public defender's office there, the prosecutor's office. So it may appear to anyone coming to the courthouse that we're one and the same, that the judges are controlling the entire building. But it doesn't quite work like that. So I wanted to talk about how new cases are filed with the court, and then how those cases move through the court system. So we often hear a lot of people say, hey, it's the judge who ordered that the police officer issue the citation, or they ordered that I be arrested. And now we have the prosecutor who's working on behalf of the courthouse prosecuting me in court. But it doesn't work like that at all. The courts and the police department and the prosecutor's office are completely separate agencies from the courts. We all report to different people. Not only do we report to different people, but they're not our prosecutors and our police officers. They may be in court to testify, and they may be the ones that are moving a case forward, but they're not ours. They're your prosecutors and your public defenders and your police department. They're there to protect the entire community. And the prosecutor's office is moving those cases forward on behalf of state government. And they're doing that to help the entire public. They're doing that to protect our community. So why is that important? The courts always have to maintain and be in a neutral position. Because when you have two opposing sides coming to the courthouse and asking for the judge to make a decision, believe me, you want that judge to give you a fair opportunity to discuss the case with them. You want that court to be neutral. And so it's really important to understand that about the courts. Now, a lot of the criminal cases, for example, pretty much all of them are going to be filed by the prosecutor's office, and it's a vast majority of the cases that are actually filed with a court. And that is done by the prosecutor's office filing a new case with the courthouse. The courthouse isn't out there, and the judges aren't out there seeking the new cases. It also means that they're the ones who are moving the cases along. Now, in criminal cases, we have court rules and we have a court process that has been put in place to make sure that as a defendant, your constitutional rights are protected. You have a right to a speedy trial, you have a right to be heard, and there are many opportunities going through the court process where the case can be dismissed and where the prosecutor's office has to meet their burden of proof. If they do not, then the case can be dismissed at that point. But someone's moving that case along, and it's not necessarily the court or the judge that's doing that. Now, when we look at civil cases, you'll have a lot of private individuals and or businesses, attorneys filing lawsuits on their behalf, and they're the ones that have to move that case along. So one of the most confusing things for a lot of members of the public when they come into the courthouse, they'll come to the clerk's office and they'll ask to talk to the judge. They say, I have something that I need the judge to decide. I want to talk to them. It's an emergency. I need to talk to them right now. But we can't do that. The way that you have the opportunity to communicate with the judge is by filing a motion with the court. And the motion is just our legal word for filing any sort of request. It could be a motion to continue. It could be a motion for an emergency order, but there has to be a process in place. And why do we do that? If you think of a situation, let's say we have a hypothetical where you share custody of your child with the other parent, and you were in an accident on your way to pick them up from daycare, you're in the hospital now. The other parent doesn't know that. They just know that Child Protective Services called, and now you have to pick up your child. So you think you have a parent who took off and just disappeared. Well, what if you were then able to go to court the very next morning and ask the judge to get full custody of your child, because all of a sudden you have a missing parent, and that other parent is still in the hospital and didn't have an opportunity to get that information to the court? It would seem very unfair. So we don't want that to happen. We never want people to be in that situation, and the courts always have to be that neutral party. So motions are filed and other sorts of requests are filed with the court in order to get that opportunity to be heard. But the challenging thing is that information isn't generally known by everyone. And along with the motion, in a civil matter, you're also going to have to file a supporting affidavit, any additional evidence that you might want to be considered. You'll have to file with that a notice of hearing, and requests that you be given a hearing date that you'll then fill out on that sheet of paper, file it with the court, and then you have to get that served on the other party. Now, depending on where you are in the case, service might be by person, it might be by mail, and then you'll still have to file a proposed order with the court. And so already this is really, really complicated. How do I know this? I work with the Court Assistance Office for a really long time, and we have forms available through the Court Assistance Office that explain the process. It's the entire packet of forms, and a lot of these forms not only can be used in civil cases, they can be used in criminal cases as well. Those forms come with instructions. They come with everything that you need. You don't have to come up with it. They're going to already include the right court rules, the right statutes that need to be included in your request. And there's also staff available in every county at the statewide, in every single courthouse that can answer questions about that. If they can't, there's a statewide person at the Idaho Supreme Court that manages that program. That person can also answer those questions. If you're at the Ada County Courthouse and you can't get assistance for whatever reason, and you're trying to get at those forms or find out if forms exist, call the trial court administrator's office. Ask for me. My name's Imelda Ramirez, and I'm really easy to locate in that courthouse. And I can explain the process. None of us can provide legal advice, but we can explain the process, we can explain the forms, and if there's something that's beyond what we can do, then we'll explain why we can't provide that assistance. We'll look for all of the resources in the community, however, to make sure that you get that help. So I wanted to talk about a couple of different common scenarios so that if you are someone who's helping people frequently in situations where they have to interact with the courthouse, you know how to direct them. So if you are issued a citation, you don't necessarily have to come to the courthouse to get it paid. You're able to pay that online, and that link is available. I'm not going to click on it now because I'm afraid I won't be able to get back to the slides, but that link is available, and that will take you to the page where you're able to pay for the citation. If you don't want to pay it online and want to come to the courthouse or have questions, courthouse has never been closed. It did not close during the pandemic, and that's something you're still able to do. The great thing is when you click on that link, it takes you to the Ada County website, and there's a lot of information there. That website is so large that the page where we list our information for the 4th District Court, a page that I update, it's an entirely different page, and we have 40 or 50 pages there. So we can help you navigate through that. We can help you learn where some of the resources are. Oh, thank you. I don't know how that's happening, but it's happening. So she's showing you there and scrolling through that page, and there are links to a ton of different pages there. We have court services, the forms and applications, and we also have the Court Assistance Office information there. And one thing I wanted to just let everyone know is that the Court Assistance Office is still open. I know a lot of people, when they come to the courthouse, they see that the door, the sign on the door says it's closed. However, they're available for appointments, and you can also just pull a ticket when you get there and ask to talk to the Court Assistance Office, and they'll have them come up to one of the windows. They can still provide help with the forms. Thank you. So another situation, people commonly come to the courthouse after they've, maybe over a weekend, they were arrested, and now they have to come and request a hearing from the court. We call that their bond out clerk appearance. So that's something they can do on the first floor of the courthouse. FTA court, FTA stands for failure to appear. So if you, for whatever reason, weren't able to make it to court, and this won't work for felony cases, but for other charges, you can request a hearing date for FTA court. You go there, let the judge know, hey, there's a warrant, this is why I didn't appear, and then the judge can set your hearing date without you having to worry about that warrant. One of the responses that we had to COVID, because we knew we have a lot of remote hearings and not everyone is going to have the ability to appear online, we had the expo set up for a while. Now we have some conference rooms in the courthouse where if you don't have a cell phone or you simply don't have the minutes, we have computers set up with listening stations, headsets, where you can come and attend your court hearing. And so there, you don't have to know anything about computers. We have staff that are able to assist and connect you. And if we run out of stations, we also have tablets, we have cell phones. If we run out of those, we have Zoom cards. We'll find a way to help you get set up. The only thing we ask is that you come with a little bit of advance time before your hearing. So another common scenario that they were talking about previously was filing for a civil protection order. So for example, when you come in, or if you're helping someone who is going to come into the courthouse and request a civil protection order, the very first thing you want them to do after they go through screening is stop at the information desk, talk to one of the deputies, or go to any one of the front counter clerks and let them know that you need an interpreter. You don't have to say anything other than that and the language that you need the interpreter. If they don't speak enough English to explain that, that's fine. We have these cards that are available, and they have a phrase in 50 or 60 different languages that explains to the person, we are contacting an interpreter. The interpreter will be provided at no cost to you. And that is available. It's something we have at our information desk and also make available to our staff. After that, let's say they just need the court forms. The court forms are always going to be free there at the courthouse. For civil protection orders and small claims, those are always going to be free. If they have any questions or need help filling them out, we have that assistance available as well. And there's also a WCA staff that can be available if they have questions in completing the forms, or if they simply want to learn about resources. They have a lot of information, and there's a lot of assistance available. Like Santiago mentioned, we have the language line. So even if he was busy and no one was able to get a hold of him and our 2 staff interpreters were in court, we have everyone else in our office trained on how to, who to contact and how to reach out to get an interpreter for a number of different languages. So beyond those common scenarios, there's also a lot of information and court forms for civil matters like eviction, divorce, child custody, small claims, and guardianship. Guardianship, for example, we have a guardianship monitoring program, and their role is to help the courts monitor people under guardianship. And they provide a lot of assistance and help with people who need to file their annual reports. They also do home visits and phone visits for people under guardianship to make sure that they have the resources that they need. If you have someone or you're filing for a child custody matter or divorce matter, and you need help with developing a parenting plan, a visitation schedule, then that's something that our Family Court Services Office can help with. Not only do they help with the child support calculations, but they answer a lot of questions about the forms, about the process. And if you're not able to come to the courthouse, they do a weekly forms workshop where you're able to sit in and listen to all of the information and ask your questions. We're also available to provide interpreters for the Focus on Children class. All of that assistance is available. And all of these different offices are also trained, and it's a requirement that they learn and know about the resources in the community for all of these different areas. For example, if you come, they know that Idaho Legal Services website, Idaho Legal Aid Services website, has a lot of additional information. Let's say that you are a juvenile and you want your criminal record expunged. They have those forms available on the Idaho Legal Aid website. It's not just the forms, but they explain the entire process, and they show who qualifies and who doesn't qualify for those. They also have power of attorney forms on their website, and forms for wills, small estate affidavit. Small estate affidavits are used if you have less than $100,000 in property, or the person who passed did, and you want to have that whatever property it is transferred to your name. Usually we see like maybe $1,000 or $2,000 in a bank account that someone's trying to get at. Those forms are available on the Idaho Legal Aid website. So this is something that we just want you to know, that there's a lot of resources available at the courthouse. And if you have any questions or you're not really getting what you think you need, feel free to contact the trial court administrator's office. Now, the last thing I was asked to cover was how you get to different court records. And I think the important thing to understand, and I even have to look at my notes for this because we have 4 or 5 different types of court records. So when we look at our transcripts office, they are found on the 4th floor of the courthouse as you enter to the trial court administrator's office. And they have a listening station. So their office responds to requests for audio recordings of court hearings. If all you want to do is listen to a court hearing, then you just go to their office and they have a listening station and you can listen to the entire audio recording of that court hearing. If you want to take a copy of it or have a record of that made, then it's going to be $5 for a CD for the first 20 minutes. And a lot of hearings are going to be 20 minutes or less, so that covers a lot of times the full cost of it. You should also have your ID available when you visit their office. Some of the hearings are closed or sealed for whatever reason, and you would just need to prove your identity and that you're able to actually listen to those hearings. On the other hand, if you're looking for a written transcript, something that's the verbatim typed statement of what was said during your court hearing, you can still visit the transcripts office and they'll put you in touch with the correct court reporter that did that transcript or that can transcribe the hearing for you. That gets much more expensive. They're going to charge between $325 and $525 a page. The cost is dependent on how quick you need that record. The $325 is a 30-day turnaround at least. And so I mention that because one of the things that Santiago and I have heard is that a lot of people won't come and request copies of their court hearings even when they need it, because they're thinking they have to pay hundreds of dollars. And the audio recording is a lot cheaper than that. So there's a difference between the two. If you need something like the court minutes from the hearing, these can be obtained from the clerk's office on the 1st floor. And the court minutes are summary notes that a judge's clerk took during the hearing. It's not going to have the full audio, but something like that can be printed out and they're only $1 a page. Any additional court documents are also $1 a page. The thing that we don't have at the courthouse is anything like the body cam video or the audio from an arrest. Those would have to be requested from the agency that made the arrest. So I did want to leave some time for any questions. This concludes the presentation for us. So I'd just like to open it up and then I'll come down there so that I can take the mic to the tables.
It's about the is that wait a minute, can you put it up closer? I'm curious about, for the interpreters that you hire that aren't on staff, what does that job look like for them in terms of, like, are they contracted or are they employed? And then do they have to be on call for those opportunities, or are those interpretive services planned in advance?
Thank you. Great question. Thank you so much. So the way it works is we see the cases first, so we know a little. So we know a little bit in advance. We do have 2 employees that are there, 40 hours a week, that they can help. That being said, thank you so much. All right. So let's suppose you need a language like Chaquis. I keep mentioning this language, but it's a language that we're using a lot, and we don't have one single interpreter here in Idaho. So if you know somebody that speaks Czech, please give them my number. So what we do is they just work on their own, right? We contact them. All we gotta make sure is that they do have legal experience, that they meet all the requirements that we were talking about. And then we hire them. They're hired for a minimum of 2 hours. Even if the hearing took, whatever, 40 minutes, it's everywhere. I work as a medical interpreter, well, I used to. And it's everywhere that you're hired for a minimum of 2 hours. But that's why it's very important what Imelda was saying. If you know that something is coming, don't feel bad at all to give us a call. We better, get it that way that we know for sure that for your appointment you will have an interpreter, and not that we find out last minute, which we still will try our best to contact people and get you an interpreter, even if it is, a last minute thing.
I did want to add one thing. Our office is also able to share the contacts for all of our interpreters. We can let you know what they charge, and we can provide you the full list of interpreters that we have for any specific language.
It's more of a, I don't think it's a question, it's more of a statement. So I've seen interpreters, certified interpreters, when they're interpreting, they're speaking so fast and using $10 words that the person that they're interpreting for doesn't understand what's being said. So it's kind of a moot point to have an interpreter. How do you fix that?
So basically what we ask the interpreter, and is part of the training that they go through, is to literally translate or interpret what the judge was saying, okay? So if the judge is using this different level, that you can tell, I don't think this person is, the person can absolutely say, I don't know what that means. And the interpreter will say, I don't know what that means. And the judge can absolutely go ahead and, I think my microphone is not working. Can you hear me? Because of the echo. So the judge or the attorney or whoever is there, they can reward it, they can rephrase it, but it's not up to the interpreter to change anything at all of what has been said, if that answers. Any other question?
They're checking online.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure, and we do 100% believe that inequality, and that's what Ada County is really striving to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.